Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Yeah.
The views expressed by J. Michael McCoy are the views of the hosts and guests of Max World Live, and not necessarily the views of Webcast One Live, its staff, its management, the cleaning crew, Dave the electric guy, the guy who cleans the skywalk, the woman who brought in the cookies, the management staff of Hubble Real Estate, the parking lot attendant at Keck Parking, the wait staff over at Miss Kitty's, the coffee crew at Frederick's, the man in the street corner willing to work for food, Rob Spearman, Max Crabb, or anyone else of sound mind. Should you be offended, provoked, intimidated, shocked, confused, or just made to think independently, log on to MaxWorldLive.com right now. It's your voice we want to hear in Max World. And now, live from the palatial studios of Webcast One Live, your host, J. Michael McCoy.
All right, 4 minutes after the hour, Tuesday, the second day of December in the Lord's year 2014. I'm J. Michael McCoy, and here we are back in front of you on a beautiful Tuesday afternoon. And, we have an announcement to make, and I didn't even talk to you about the announcement first. I hope it's okay.
On?
You and I are going to be on the radio every day now from 3 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Ryan, he doesn't look like he's taking me too seriously. What do you think? No, the actual truth is that, on Wednesdays and Thursdays, I always had right places.
Yes.
Come in. And starting this week, I'm back 5 days a week.
Are you? Well, congratulations on that.
Yeah. So you Recovery Monday and Restoring Hope on Monday with the folks from Powell talking about hurts, habits, and hangups. And you and I'll do our political show on Tuesday.
Tuesdays, okay.
Then Frank, the voice, it'll be his job to pick the topic and the guest for Wednesdays. All right. Mm-hmm. And then Thursday and Friday, we'll go back to some awesome theological questions and thinking with some of the area's most incredible pastors, people that I'm just God has just blessed me with such a wonderful, I don't know, what do you want to call it, an address book of pastors, just guys and gals in this town who represent God and who pick up the phone when they see it's my number and name at the other end, and that's kind of hard to believe sometimes, but they do. So we'll be doing View from the Pew theological conversations every Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. I don't know what they'll be on Wednesday. I mean, you like Frank?
Oh, yeah, Frank's a good guy.
I like, and he's smart, and he's courteous, and he's a good dad, and he's kind, but sometimes I think the elevator doesn't go all the way to the top. Now, I know they say that about me, and I'd accept that if they said that about me. So I'm putting him and I in good circles together. But we're going to have some great theological conversations.
I think maybe his elevator goes all the way to the top. Now, how many floors is on that elevator? I think that there you go. We've got some of the have very high levels of elevation, like we've had Sam and Doug Gross and Matt Whitaker and guys like that have.
How many floors do you think they have in their building?
A lot of floors.
20?
And you and I don't have that many. And
you
I
think they have like 20, 25?
I think at least, yeah.
Where do you sit? You like 21?
I think maybe we're in the lower teens in that case, Matt.
I'm not that low.
Okay.
I was going to put you up higher than me, but you're not dragging me down into the muck of.
I think Frank is in that area somewhere.
Well, Frank's above me.
Okay.
And you're above Frank.
Okay.
And Sam Clovis and
Doug Gross, Matt Whitaker, those guys are way up there.
Yeah. And who else would be clear up there? Ed Fallon. Jonathan Narcissus.
Yeah. Bradshaw.
They'd be skyscrapers.
Well, we're talking about something that goes down below ground.
Okay.
By the way, we're supposed to have
fun.
Another very smart guy on today, Will Rogers, and I just got a text from him that Will is down with a bad case of bronchitis, so he will not be joining us today. Normally, ladies and gentlemen, we have a guest schedule in on Tuesday, although not always, and we always manage to muddle through with just the two of us, Max.
Sure.
We'll have to see if we can't do that day unless we can jerk somebody off the skywalk. Maybe we can see a likely prospect coming in on the skywalk, and we'll just put him in the chair.
Well, and there's always Frank. If Frank's not working, he can call.
That's right.
Ryan, whose elevator goes exceptionally high.
Well, he got a high. Yeah, he's got a lot of floors in that elevator.
He won't even come on the radio with us. I mean, he won't. I have a friend of mine, a good friend of mine, Kelly, that I love dearly, And when he tells his story of salvation and recovery, he said, I got out of jail because I was drunk and I improperly touched my wife. I don't want to say he hit her or beat her because he didn't. But in these days, you put a finger on and it's domestic abuse. And so he got arrested for drunk in public, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And he says, I was so low, the only guy I could think of calling was Mac McCoy. And that's just the most left-handed compliment I've ever heard in my life.
I'm not sure how I'd take that one, but...
Anyway.
we've got some things to talk about today. There's no doubt about it. There've been a lot of things going on in the last week that we need to touch on. I had lunch yesterday with a guest we had on 2 weeks ago, I think now, Mac, Connie Schmidt. She came on and talked about the gambling issue. Sharp lady.
Yeah,
husband ran for the U.S. House some years back against Boswell. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And...
that was the time Boswell said if he was elected, he'd not rerun. That was against Connie.
Yes, I think he was, yeah.
So he fooled the independent voters.
Connie's
anyway,
husband,
I
Kim,
don't want to get on.
And of course Boswell turned. There was some hope for him to be a reasonably principled, moderate Democrat. That kind of went out the window, and he became a toady for the Democrat establishment, Nancy Pelosi and the bunch, and anything they wanted, all he had to do was, slap his head with his salute and say, yes, ma'am, how high do you want me to jump?
Yeah.
So.
But you and Connie had a conversation about Ferguson, and she made a comment about one of my pastor's posts on Facebook.
She did, and I don't want to speak for her. She wanted to know my thoughts on the Ferguson thing, which we'll be happy to air out again. I think Ferguson needs to be discussed again today.
Hands up, don't shoot.
5 St. Louis Rams came out over the weekend with that, Mac.
Yep.
And surprisingly, for those of you that don't know, again, 5 St. Louis Rams came out on the field in uniform with this hands up, don't shoot nonsense.
Yeah.
Now, you would have expected, given the really tight leash the NFL and the clubs have put on many of their players for activities. You mentioned spousal abuse. Certainly the
Ray Rice.
The Ray Rice situation has been very well publicized. That wasn't in uniform or on the field. It was in an elevator at a casino that's since shut down. And yet they acted like they were going to ban him for life.
Well, they did.
Well, they banned him for the season, and a judge reversed it the other day.
Yeah. Even after this girl that he improperly
fiance,
touched,
now wife,
came to his side and said, listen, this is much my deal as his.
Right. She slapped him and insulted him, spit on him first, and then later in the elevator he cold-cocked her or hit her. She hit her head on a railing. But anyway, the NFL seems to have the ability to get involved in all sorts of things on and off the field. And here you've got this act. Now, the question is, Mac, do these 5 players really believe that Michael Brown threw his hands up and said don't shoot and then was shot?
Well,
do they believe the early crud that was coming out of these activists and the race baiters like Al Sharpton?
I had lunch today with a really smart guy that I've known for a lot of years, and he's a public figure, so if you'll give me permission, I'm not going to tell you his name, but I promise he said this.
Okay.
And he said, every time, Mac, I would listen to your radio program and you would make some smart aleck remark about the low information voter, the LIV. And this was a term I picked up probably 10, 12 years ago because I didn't want to be a bigot. I didn't want to be a racist. I didn't want to sound like I was against a certain gender or a race or anything like that. I just wanted to define these people. Mm-hmm. Because they're not black, and they're not white, and they're not Indian, and they're not male or female or old or young. Right. They are people who gather the least amount of information available to them and make a decision, and then stick with it no matter what the facts show.
Well, this Ferguson thing defines that for many of these people, doesn't it?
Well, it's the world that the advertising marketing people go after, the low information voter.
Good point.
And these guys on the Los Angeles Rams, and I'd say this if I was sitting across from them, these are the lowest of information voters. These are guys who have honed their skills and talents, so they are worth millions of dollars a year.
Right.
You're a much more talented business person than any of those people are, Tom.
Well,
You're a much better family man, father, grandfather, and yet they're able to reap this world's riches by honing a certain skill or talent. So you've got to assume someplace the brain connects to the heart. But these guys come out. I mean, everything in the grand jury said he was not holding up his hands, yelling, "Don't shoot." He was charging the officer as if he had, just as he had tried previously, to get his gun and kill him. Now, those are the facts. If there's somebody listening out there that disagrees with the facts, I promise I'll be nice. But I'd really like to hear from you.
But we talked last week, and we need to talk again, because many of these people say, do not confuse me with the facts, with the law. I've got my mind made up, and anybody that speaks against the way I've got my mind made up is a bigot. And we are people that even many of their, I mean, Charles Barkley spoke recently about this situation, and many of their own people are speaking out. I'm talking about leading members in the black community are speaking out, and they're being ridiculed and called Uncle Toms and so forth, just for speaking out and saying, these are the facts. You know, the police officers, yeah, they make mistakes, but they're not all bad, and there are some people, about a third to more of the population, that think that virtually all the cops are racist, that they're always out to get you, and that there are some. But now the problem is that especially in the inner cities, there is a big disproportionate amount of the crime that is committed by the certain areas of the population that we're talking about. And when they're talking about the killings in the black community, which are greatly disproportionate to the white community, over 90% of them are committed by other blacks.
Right.
It's not by whites going in there and saying, we want to get rid of you blacks. It's by the other blacks, many of the gang members and the thugs and the hoods that oftentimes are raised up, and they're the ones that are made to be somehow icons, role models for the black community. It's the very ones that are doing them in. Now, you had a post, and I didn't see the post. I heard about the post. Do you have it there in front of you, Mac, that was done on your church?
When we come back from the break, I've got a post by one of the most visible and senior pastors in our community, and what he publicly posted about the Ferguson situation. And I'm interested in getting not only your opinion, Tom. Connie shared her opinion with you, and I'm interested in hearing that. Frank is on the landline for us, and so he'll join us, and we'll get some input on that, because we are a country that is going through some of the same civil unrest that we did in the 60s and early 70s. And it was surrounded by the drug culture, the anti-Vietnam War culture, and leading up to that was civil rights.
Well, and we had separatism. We had a separation in especially in the South in public utilities and so forth between the white and the blacks. We don't have that. The one thing that we do have, Mac, and I'll say this for the break, is we do have a organizer in chief and minions like Eric Holder that are doing everything they can, in my opinion, to further the racial divide. Many of the people, both white and black, voted for this guy with no resume because they thought he would heal the racial strife and the wounds in this country and bring us together, and he has done just the opposite. We are much more polarized today than we were before his election.
And if you stop and talk to those people, the majority of them still stick to their guns. I have a bad habit of following people who have Obama stickers on their cars. And if they pull into a Casey's or they pull into a Fairway or they pull into a parking garage or whatever, I very, very carefully, hands up, don't shoot. No, I'm kidding. Very, very carefully approach them and say, hey, I notice you have an Obama sticker. Are you still a fan? And I don't give them my opinion. I'm not there to have them hear mine. I want to hear those.
Do you really? Yeah.
And
what kind of response do you get?
The one that I remember so incredibly was the lady said, yeah, my son worked on his campaign. And I said, oh, well, did you vote? Well, yeah, my son worked on his campaign. So given the last 6 years, are you still comfortable with him? Well, my son worked on his campaign. And I had a lady walk out of the green room of our studios, not on air, because she wouldn't listen to the facts. Hope and change were a slogan. And those folks are too embarrassed to realize they fell for it.
Well, I've half jokingly said that they're entitled to handicap parking wherever they go.
We're coming back live with Tom Coates. Hey, psst. Let me let you in on a little secret. You ready? Always try to do business with people, not places. Especially if you seek honest Christian business people. And when it comes to my car, I really need to trust who's working on it. Now, my family is so blessed. A few years ago, we found a family-owned automobile repair shop that operates as a Christian business also. Open, honest, reliable, trustworthy. It's AMCO on Hickman Road in front of Kmart, and it's a family-owned Christian operating business. This family treats your car as if it was their car. Everything from oil changes to transmission repair and everything in between. So the next time you feel the need to be at peace with your choice of who you can trust with your car, give AMCO on Hickman a chance to serve you. And tell them Max sent you.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
All right, we're back. Second day of December in the Lord's year 2014. We're going to talk about, we're going to get Frank on the air, and we're going to talk about the Ferguson thing, and we're going to talk about the Post. But, we got the news last week and earlier this week that one of Des Moines' foremost great broadcasters is retiring at the age of 82. Is that right?
I think you're
80
close
something.
to it, Mac. Close to it.
Maxine Seelman, who has done a faith-based show years ago on KWKY. I believe she was on the old KDMI, which was 97.3. And for the last 20 years, I think, she has been on Praise 940.
Well, since whatever year the
Catholics took over.
KWKY was sold to the Catholics,
Yeah.
she moved over and then went to Praise 940 at that point.
That would have been in about 90 or 91.
Okay, whatever year that was, she moved over. Now, I used to go down and do her show on the KWKY when it was south of the broadcasting studio was south of Norwalk. So I got to know her then. She's since then come on my board. She's been a board member of Consumer Credit for quite a few years now. She works at the Capitol, has worked for different state senators.
Oh, my.
And she's still doing that.
Wow.
But she's finally hanging up her spurs this week, and I was very honored when she called me last week and asked me to come on and do her last show, which will be this Friday. It'll air at 8 to 8:30 on Praise 940. So kudos to Maxine for a long, very storied career, a very classy lady.
You know, I have tried for years, with obviously no avail, to start a Iowa Broadcasters Hall of Fame. And I first tried to hook up with the folks who did the Sports Hall of Fame over at the Hy-Vee Hall.
Sure.
And they didn't seem to want to mix the two. But Maxine is certainly one of those people. I think about Dick Youngs. I think about Jared Day. I think about the gentleman that's now the PR, Woolery. Don, Mr. Woolery. He was the news director for KRNT for years, and now he works for the government. You'd have to put Ronnie Reagan in there.
Well,
you'd have to put Van and Connie and Bonnie.
Yep, and
Jan Michelson.
Probably Jim Zabel, just because of his length of service over there.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, and so we could get a pretty good Hall of Fame, and of course we got to get you in there, Mac.
Well, I'm the black sheep.
Speaking of black sheep,
I'm the tomb of the unknown disc jockey. But maybe you could help me with that because, you know, Russ Van Dyke started out on radio. Now, that's a name. He's passed away for years now, but he started out on radio. You go back to the KRNT theater days and look to see some of the things that people have done in this town for radio. Radio's been around for about 95 years. We're about ready to celebrate 100 years of radio. And ever since that happened, WHO has always been on the air. And there are people that went through there. I'm trying to think of the farm director for years and years and years that was there. He's passed away now, but Dale, Kylie, anyway, I don't know. I'm not a farm person, but a lot of people would deserve to have their name recognized as a Hall of Famer. And maybe someday we can do that. Maybe when we're sitting in our rocking chairs.
That'd be a good idea.
Yeah, that would be. Maybe we could have it out at the Consumer Credit Broadcasters Hall of Fame.
There you
have
go.
It in the room. All right, let's bring on Frank, who's been hanging on way too long. Frank, I hope you have unlimited minutes on your cell phone because we've made you hang on too long, but we appreciate you being here. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Now, your first day's coming tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll see how it goes. I got a guest lined up, and so looking for good things.
See, tomorrow, on Wednesdays from now on, and those of you that listen on the radio and don't watch this visually, I'm going to make a visual comment, but I'm going to sit in your chair tomorrow.
Oh, really?
In the co-host chair. Frank's going to sit in the captain's chair.
Wow.
And then whoever his guest is will sit over there. And see, now I get to be Henri. Because it's Frank's job to referee. So I get to be Henri.
Well, we got to let Tom know. Speaking of elevators, I might be like that Hancock building in Chicago. If you want to go all the way to the top, unless you go to the basement and get those fast-track elevators all the way to the top, you got to get off on different floors and work your way up to the top.
Did you agree with our analogy and referring to, he mentioned Ed Fallon and others?
His elevator may go 100 floors the opposite direction.
That's what I was thinking. We're looking at a subterranean elevator, right?
No, he's a good man, but he's one of those guys that you talk about low information, and I kind of have evolved on this low information voter thing because it can kind of sound like a slam to certain people who may be prone to think that, but I just call it wrong information.
Well, and you see that Ed is now moving to a radio station. I got his email this week, and they'll be able to fully appreciate him. It's a Spanish-speaking channel.
Yeah.
And they'll be able to fully appreciate Ed in all his glory over there. He'll be speaking,
understand the thing he says.
liberalese, and they'll be only listening in Spanish, and it'll make perfect sense to them.
Well, listen, on this...
I don't understand. I don't understand. I don't know.
You'd understand why you saw he's moving there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I wish him all the luck in the world, but I would assume he's doing his show in Spanish.
I don't think he's
No, he's not.
Speak Spanish.
No, he's not.
First English-speaking show the station's ever had, they said. And I'm not sure Ed qualifies. He's a nice fella, but I mean... How many days was he out in the hot sun on this climate march?
6 months.
I mean, he's
going to do another one.
What Lily had, I think, got fried out in the desert sun.
Tom, we need to send him back out on that march to bring us some warm weather. We just had the fourth coldest November in Iowa history.
Yeah, but Frank, what you've lost track of here before we go on to Ferguson is that whether it's too hot, too cold, too dry, too wet, too windy, too anything in the
That's right.
elements, it's the fault of man.
That's right.
It's not global warming anymore. And back when I was in college, we were going in the next ice age. Anything unusual happens here now, it's a fault of man and those doggone greenhouse gases.
Well, Tom, would you ever lose an argument if you could take both sides of the argument?
No, they finally got smart, Frank. And you remember a few years ago, Al Gore was predicting we were going to have year after year of all these hurricanes in the Gulf, and it was just going to blow the whole Gulf out because we're going to have nothing but hurricanes because of man-made global warming. And what we had the lowest hurricane years back to back that we've had since I've been alive.
Well, and everybody in this room knows why they want to convince the government and the low information voters that climate change, or whatever you want to call it, exists because they want to tax us.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Yeah, they want to. Here's what, for you low information voters listening, don't buy into this, because here's what they want. The end game, the slippery slope, the end game is for you finally to admit that you have something to do with climate change. Heaven forbid God is in control and is completely around here. And they're gonna measure your, what are they called, Frank? Carbon outputs?
Your carbon footprint.
Yeah.
Carbon footprint, and then they're going to tax you on it.
Oh, yeah.
here's
Well, they're going to
deal.
put the coal companies out of business. I was talking to Ed Brown, who we need to get Ed back on the show again one of these days. He's got a son that runs a uranium enrichment plant, one of the biggest in the country in Kentucky, going out of business now because the coal-fired power plant that was supplying them all the energy that they need, it's going out of business. So they're shutting down the largest uranium enrichment factory, employs thousands of people, and it's because of our community organizer in chief and his regulators. It's coming through the, not legislation, but back door. And it's just another example, like this Ferguson, of an ideology that is killing us. It's just killing us.
Well, this global warming serves a twofold purpose, and any of your listeners out there that would like to Google a name called Naomi Klein, she has a new book out, and she's basically a committed leftist, and she lays out the agenda that this whole global warming is an effort to destroy capitalism, number one. And number two, unless you prove global warming, you can never usher in Al Gore's cap and trade system. So that's the reasons why they have to prove to you that the climate is changing so that they can socialize our energy policies in this country and, tax us every step of the way.
What do you think about this? Obama put a very high priority since he got his butt kicked in November on this issue. He's gone over to China. What do you think about the deal he hooked up with the Chinese on the greenhouse gases, Frank?
Well, I don't think the Chinese aren't going to shoot themselves in the foot. I mean, they've got a 1 billion-man workforce over there that's willing to work for 37 cents an hour. And they don't care how you pollute their air and how much you pollute their waters, as long as you take their jobs to China. So, Obama can go over there and sign all the agreements he wants. I don't think you're ever going to get China. I mean, much like they don't obey the rules in our trade systems, what makes you going to think they're going to obey the rules in?
But Frank, on the surface, this is absolutely inequitable. He promised to further reduce our greenhouse gases, which the greenhouse gases expand when we've got a growing economy. They shrink when you've got a shrinking economy. And the chicken or the egg, which comes first? If you try to reduce the greenhouse gases, aren't you going to further guarantee our economy is going to shrink rather than expand? He agreed to start doing that right away. The Chinese, under this agreement, my understanding is that they can continue to expand their greenhouse gases till about 2030, and then they'll promise to take a look at trying to reduce them. Now, how is that equitable for this country?
Well, it's not. It's like our trade. It's like our trade agreements. They're lopsided. They're unfair. Obama is doing something unilaterally. But this cap and trade thing is such a farce because there's going to be no more or less carbon going into the atmosphere. It's just you're going to have to pay for it. If you run out, you're going to have to barter your credits with somebody else. Just happens that Al Gore and his cronies will be the ones doing the bartering. But you'll still be able, if if you purchase more credits or trade for more credits, you'll still be able to pump the same amount of so-called carbon into the atmosphere.
Well, maybe, but he's putting the coal companies out of business. I saw an article the other day about these people, that thousands of them losing their jobs in the coal industry. You can say you can do it, but it's going to be much more costly. Uranium, it should be the thing that everybody wants to do is nuclear. I mean, it's the cleanest, most efficient way to produce a kilowatt of energy, and yet the greenies don't like nuclear either, Mac.
Well, there is a group of committed leftists. I forget the movie they have out. I brought it up on Ed Show one night, but there's a group of committed leftists out there that believe in global warming and say the only way into the future is nuclear energy.
Well, I don't think they've got a lot of company. A lot of them on the left hate nuclear.
Well, what's the political angle for the leftists to hate the coal industry? What I don't get it. Why do they not like coal?
They don't like anything to do with fossil fuels, Mac. They think. In fact, that's why the Democrat Party is so interesting, because they've got these disparate groups. Some of them cling to abortion on demand as their mantra. Others want, a deviant marriage as their mantra. Others want to pray to Mother Earth rather than Father God. And it's that last group that we're talking about, and they think that there isn't any hereafter, but they do think that the major issue that they want to give allegiance to is doing everything they can to save this planet. And I think that's where they get off the train. I think once you say that, well, fossil fuels are in the ground, we need to leave it there because to take them out is going to pollute this planet and going to kill us.
All right, Frank, you hang on. When we come back, we'll get into Ferguson, and we'll read a blog post by one of Iowa's most well-loved and known pastors. And this is a public blog he put out, and we'll find out what you think. The conversation's always about Jesus. It'll be with Tom and Frank and Mac and Ryan next on the Truth Network, 99.3 FM.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner of Service Legends, and my position is Chief Talent Officer.
I'm Nicholas Wonderscheid.
I am Bernie Homs,
And I'm the Service Manager.
Marketing Director and Client Relations Manager.
Everything that we do is about ensuring that we exceed your expectations.
Our clients are important to us. 100% satisfaction.
We're not just focused on heating and cooling. That's the easiest part of our job, actually, is fixing furnaces and air conditioners.
Everyone that we come in touch with, we want to improve lives.
Bottom line is, we've got our installation guarantees, 25% energy savings guarantee, comfort guarantee, temperature selection guarantee, property protection guarantee.
100% satisfaction guaranteed. Fixed rate or it's free.
All of those guarantees are backed up with a 100% money-back guarantee to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that you get what you're after.
Just fixing the problem today. If they have another problem 5 days down the road, it's still fixed rate or it's free.
We use what's called straightforward pricing. Our technicians are going to give you an exact to-the-penny price on what it's going to take before they move forward with any repair. That way you know what to expect.
It's the same price every day.
No surprises.
If you get off work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you come home, you realize that, oh, my furnace is broken. Now you need to call somebody out that night. You shouldn't have to pay more for that.
We're guaranteeing service 24/7.
We run afternoons, evenings, nights, weekends. We're staffed to work that.
Phone rings at 3 in the morning. You'll get one of our representatives answering the phone every time.
We're not sending you out to Timbuktu in some call center. It's our Service Legend team members, our mission control team.
I'll take a call anytime.
And then they answer the phones the same way during the day as they do at night.
It's a great day at your service company. How can we make you smile?
That's the only way to provide true 24-hour service.
When you're able to let somebody actually live in their home safely when they weren't able to do that before, where they don't have to stay up at night and worry about, is the heat going to come back on? Are we going to freeze the pipes? Is the baby in the room next door going to be sick because they got too cold? When you're able to help somebody overcome challenges like that, that's impacting a life. That makes a difference. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I love the team. I love the people that I work with.
We have fun, but we work hard.
I call them my ambassadors of legendary service. If you could just envision what that is, that's who we're sending to your home.
They literally will call in, pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to talk to your manager. And I get on the phone, they're like, that technician that was at my house was the greatest technician ever. That's cool to me.
We want to brighten people's days.
Every person that we have going into the house has gone through an extensive background check.
Drug testing. We have a very thorough interview process that 1 out of 140 people make it through.
If we promise you something, that's what you're going to get, no matter what.
We're here when you need us to protect the safety and comfort of your family.
If you're not happy, we're gonna make it right.
If we're willing to put 100% money back guarantee on what we do, what type of work do you think we do?
Give us a call. We're there for you 24/7, 365 days a year.
Enough said.
All right, 22 before the top of the hour. If you're watching on Webcast One or maybe listening on the radio, you just heard a commercial from Service Legends. And Brian Leach, who is one of my best buddies, just love that man, is going to give his personal testimony tomorrow, Wednesday, the 3rd of December, at Ryan's Steakhouse from noon to 1. And it's free unless you want to eat. Then it costs you to eat.
Oh, I have to pay?
Yes, Tom.
Now, if I come, I'm surely going to be comped a free lunch, right?
Not by me.
I've got it down on my schedule, Mac. So I would assume that if I'm going to come clear across town, I'm going to be fed.
It's not clear across town for me, though. Anyway, if you need me to buy your lunch, Mr. Homeless, I'll do it. But I get to categorize and write the headlines for this. And the headline I wrote for Brian was From Playboy to God's Boy. Because what we'll learn tomorrow about Brian is he lived every young man's dream.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Fritz Trost, who's a friend of ours, he's been on the show before. He did an open house. He was a home builder, and he did an open house one day at Biaggi's and invited Brian, and Brian had forgotten he had invited 2 women. And Brian sat there for 2 or 3 hours having a date with 2 women. And by the way, those women on a scale of 1 to 10 were 11s.
Ooh.
Brian lived an earthly, unbelievably financially successful life. And then about 4 years ago, Jesus mugged him. And his story is very dramatic and very good. And,
I look forward to it.
And Brian's he's not a good professional speaker, which means he's a really good storyteller. So it's going to come from the heart.
I've had lunch with Brian a few times, gotten to know him. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be really good. I'm really looking forward to having Brian do that. And he's nervous, and I'm glad he's nervous because that tells me he's thinking about what he's got to be doing, you know. All right, Frank, the voice. Who's your guest tomorrow, by the way?
A young guy named Mackenzie Jean. He's a youth pastor.
He's a youth pastor where?
At the First Seventh-day Adventist Church in Des Moines, Iowa.
Oh, all right. And what's the topic?
I think we're going to be talking about youth and the importance of how we train our youth in society and where we're getting derailed.
All right. And I'm just going to be the co-host with the most.
That's fine.
Okay.
You remember Fred Gwynn as the judge in My Cousin Vinny? Utes.
Yeah.
What's a ute?
Ute. Yeah. Ute.
Ute.
All right. Here is a blog post written by a senior pastor from one of Des Moines' leading churches. And the reason I'm not going to tell you his name is because it's only public if it's on Facebook. And, of course, this is something that the Supreme Court is arguing right now. If you say something on Facebook, are you really protected under the rights of the First Amendment? Because Facebook is not fully public.
Ah, yeah, you're right. Because, if you're not part of Facebook, you just can't everybody go on. Yeah, that's a good
if I
point.
stand out at
Good
Third and
point.
Court at the courthouse and yell out my thoughts, that's public. Because
Okay.
anybody can walk up and see me. Not anybody can get on Facebook.
Okay, good point.
Now, excuse me, you'll say, anybody can get on Facebook. No, you have to have a computer, and you have to have an internet hookup. So you have to spend money to be in the public. And the First Amendment does not necessarily cover those people who have to spend money to get the opinion. Now, where was that proven wrong? That was proven wrong in the newspaper industry in the 1950s when they were doing the blackballing of who was in the Communist Party and who wasn't.
Okay.
And newspapers would print in there who they thought the communists were. And when they came back and they said, well, we're First Amendment rights. And the other side argued, no, you're not, because I can't afford 15 cents to buy your paper. Well, they were wrong. They got beat. And it was considered, even if you had to spend 15 or 20 cents, it's in the public deal.
Right.
Facebook is the first thing that has ever been so widespread that they may determine that Facebook is in fact public domain, and you have a complete right to say anything you want about anybody.
Interesting.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
All right. So here is the blog post that was printed by this pastor. A few thoughts on the current unrest in Ferguson and other cities across the country. Now, let's not settle for simplistic explanations to complex social issues. Let's be quick to listen and slow to speak. Of course, he's quoting James 1, verse 19. Particularly if we don't know what it really feels like to be an African American in the city with a long history of racial tension and prejudice, or the pressure a police officer encounters in a conflict that quickly escalates. Let's acknowledge that most protesters over the past few days have been nonviolent, and their fears and frustrations run far deeper than one grand jury decision. Let's agree that every life has value. Let's consider that part of God's response to our prayers for peace might include a reminder for us to live out our calling. What does that mean, to live out our calling? Well, it's explained in Micah 6:8. To act justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with our God. Finally, let's hold on to faith, and let's not give up hope for racial reconciliation. And let's trust the power of God's love reflected through millions of fully awakened church folks, just like us, to somehow use this current tension for good, making the world better, safer, and more forgiving. Now, the question I would ask each of you gentlemen, what do you think? Frank, start with you.
Well, if I can start with that, here's the basic problem. I mean, basically, in essence, what he's saying is good rhetoric. But the problem that I have with the race situation that's going on here in the United States is you have people who are capitalizing on racism. And most of the people who are capitalizing on it are in the black community. They're the race merchants like Al Sharpton, like Cornel West, like Maxine Waters, like Sheila Jackson Lee, like Michael Eric Dyson. There's people, Spike Lee. There's people out there making money on racism. So how's racism ever going to go away when you got people who have built industry on racism? You see, the black young man or woman since the 1960s has been told by the likes of Louis Farrakhan, going back to Malcolm X, that there is no justice to be had in the white man's society. So they're being indoctrinated that basically our justice system is fundamentally biased against them. So when things like St. Louis Ferguson happens, it plays into something that a preconceived notion they already believe. So if you had a videotape showing Michael Brown charging the officer, they'd say, well, what videotape? And you got Al Sharpton out there, and if you could just get him to shut up, I mean, this indoctrination has been going on for 50 years. It might take 100 or 200 years to overcome this indoctrination, and that's provided you can get the Al Sharptons of the world to shut up. So to me, it's almost like an unwinnable situation.
Well, what's their motivation to shut up? You got Al Sharpton, used to be called the Fat Rat. Now I guess he's the Skinny Rat. Won't go into why. You've got others out there. You've got Jackson that have made a living, a pretty significant living. Now, I know the Fat Rat, now the Skinny Rat, owes $4 million to the IRS. But what they've done is they've gone to companies, they've gone to corporations. Jesse Jackson's been famous for this, and going and saying, do you want problems with your minority workforce? If not, I'm going to look for about a 6-figure contribution to my Rainbow Coalition to make sure that we don't get them, we don't start picketing outside your doors claiming racial discrimination. This is an extortion business. The Mafia used to do this quite well in the day, and now we've got the Al Sharptons and the Jesse Jacksons picking that up. Now, if I were them, I would try to be a little bit more selective before they put sainthood on a kid like Michael Brown. This gentle giant that they've tried to act like is so innocent, like he was skipping off to Grandma's house. Well, this kid, let's look at what he did.
Okay, when we come back. All right. Frank, hang on. When we come back, I want to look at what he did. And then I also want to share with you the short notes on a book called Slavery by Another Name. And we'll get an understanding of why some of these people have this worldview that Frank spoke of when we come back live here on The View from a Pew with Tom Coates, Frank, Ryan, and me, Mac. Oh, and you. Thanks for listening to the Truth Network, 99.3.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can give these grandkids back, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We can help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hey, psst. Let me let you in on a little secret. You ready? Always try to do business with people, not places. Especially if you seek honest Christian business people. And when it comes to my car, I really need to trust who's working on it. Now, my family is so blessed. A few years ago, we found a family-owned automobile repair shop that operates as a Christian business also. Open, honest, reliable, trustworthy. It's AMCO on Hickman Road in front of Kmart. And it's a family-owned Christian operating business. This family treats your car as if it was their car. Everything from oil changes to transmission repair and everything in between. So the next time you feel the need to be at peace with your choice of who you can trust with your car, give AMCO on Hickman a chance to serve you. And tell them Max sent you. All right, 10 before the top, Salem Radio Network News. And then, of course, Michael Mudloff, True Blue, here on the Truth Network, 99.3. Say hi to my friend Jill King today up at King's Christian Bookstore. Give a shout-out to her. She's working hard today, making sure everything's running all right up there. Well, Randy, I don't know what her husband does. He's a good-looking fella. I think he's, you know when people stand in gorilla suits? And they have signs on that says specials today, like at Walmart. I think that's what Randy does. I really do. I don't know. I don't know what he does. But Jill works hard. Jill works so hard. Frank, you started to say something, Tom. I want to go back to what you were starting to say.
Who Michael Brown was.
Really is.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't a kid. He was 18 years old.
Which, by the way, is an adult.
That's exactly right. He was certainly a large, powerful individual. We could see that in the video, and thank God that they were able to find the video from the convenience store that they knocked over for the... And you know, very few people have talked about what they stole, Mac. Now, we heard they were a box of cigars. Actually, they were a smaller thing made by Swisher Sweets called blunts. And what they use those things for is that they... use a razor blade, I'm told. Now, I've not done it, but I'm told this is the reason.
Actually, there's a YouTube on Tom doing this.
That splits these things open where the tobacco is removed. He wasn't interested in smoking it as a cigar. Opens it up and inserts the marijuana. And it's a marijuana delivery vehicle. And when he had the autopsy performed, not once but 3 times, every time it showed that he had marijuana in his system. This stepfather that said, you know, burn this blank down, has a long criminal past, and the only evidence that they can find of the two of them spending any time together, they were smoking marijuana together. There's a picture of them smoking marijuana together, I'm told. This was a kid that assaulted the storekeeper from where he stole the thing he was going to turn into a marijuana.
Have proof.
Oh, thank God we've got proof of that, or they'd be denying that. When the cop got the description of the person and the crime that was committed, he asked him to get off the street, get over the sidewalk. They ignored him, told him to go somewhere else. He confronted him, and then this gentle giant went up into the window of the cop vehicle, punched him in the head, tried to wrestle his gun away from him. It went off twice. We know that from evidence and forensics.
And there's proof that his DNA was in the car and on the gun.
Yep, and thank goodness that we've got some of that. Otherwise, they'd be denying that as well. But his blood was in the car where he was shot in the thumb. If he had been able to get the gun away from the cop, we'd be talking about a whole different situation because
the cop would be dead.
Yeah.
And then that poor little Michael Brown who was harassed in the street was he was too young to even know what he was doing. And the cop had been looking for him and gunning for him for ages because Michael had been so misused and abused by a stepfather who wanted violence by doing anything he could to control his mother. This poor kid was mentally ill, and that's why he shot the white cop.
Yeah. Don't confuse me with the facts I said earlier. Don't confuse me with the law. We've got a thug and a miscreant, a drug user right on the street that had the temerity to assault a cop and then at the end charge him. We know his DNA was farther back. He was making a significant run at the officer rather than getting on his knees and being in a submissive position, which these 5 idiots from the the St. Louis Rams. Hands up with their hands up, apparently think that that's the position he was in. He was actually mimicking them in like a football like bull run, trying to get to the cop, get his hands on the cop. Did an interview. I've only heard and seen clips of it. I haven't seen the whole thing with the cop. With the cop that George Stephanopoulos did.
Yep.
But the interview was confirming what had come out in the evidence of the grand jury. That he said me shooting him, he wouldn't respond to any commands. He was coming at me, and me shooting him only seemed to make him angrier. He had no choice but to continue, based on his training and what protocol is, to continue to fire at this dangerous felon who was coming at him and meant him great harm. So, I mean, they already tried to get his gun away from him, and he'd have been dead if he'd have been successful.
Kind of reminds you of Trayvon Martin, made out to be this poor little kid who, in fact, tried to beat the heck out of this guy. And should he have been shot? I don't know.
The media, Mac. Yeah. The media started showing pictures of Trayvon when he was, 12 or something, and actually he was a big drug-using thug that was violent. If I had a son, he'd look like Trayvon, says our commander-in-chief, our actual community organizer-in-chief.
I want to give Frank the last word here today, but Slavery by Another Name. Very interesting book, very well written, and what it talks about is what Frank talked about, has how generations and generations and generations of black people feel that they have been taught to not trust justice and not trust the law. And as of 50 years ago, 40 or 50 years ago, that was true. The question we have to ask ourselves, is it today? That community would tell us, no. It's not true. We can't trust
you have to. The Democrats, to keep winning office, have to have a permanent voting base. So there's no way they're going to allow racism to disappear. Because if blacks started pulling themselves up economically, they already trend conservative socially. They voted gay marriage and legalized marijuana down several years ago in California by 70% of their voting bloc, and that's the same batch that voted for Obama. So if you start helping the black community pull themselves up by their bootstraps financially, fiscally, they're going to definitely lean conservative. But I wanted to address one quick point that Tom made before the break that he so articulately laid out about what Jesse Jackson is called the shakedown. And as a result of that shakedown, Jesse Jackson got 2 of his boys $8.5 million interest-free loans for beer distributorships after he shook down Budweiser.
Good point, Frank.
Tom,
thanks for adding to that.
Now, Tom, how many $8.5 million interest-free loans have you ever got?
I guess I need to submit my application to join the Rainbow Coalition, huh, Frank?
I guess. We're in the wrong business.
All right. Guys, thanks a lot for coming here today. I appreciate it. Frank, I'll see you tomorrow. I'll see you next week, Tom. And Ryan, thanks for producing. Again, remember, it's Testify. And that is where local people come and give their personal testimony on the road to personal relationship with Jesus Christ. It's at Ryan's Steakhouse. If you want to eat the full buffet and the full dinner and the full,
It's good, too.
It's $8.88, and that includes gratuity. If not, just come on in, tell them you're with Testify, and listen to this testimony. It is really going to be good. January is Brad Stamborough, the famous home builder from here in town, and then February is Tamara Scott, the chief Republican chairwoman of the Republican Party. So put it on your calendar. It's always the first Wednesday of the month at Ryan's, until further notice, that is. I'm J. Michael McCoy. If I haven't told you lately, thanks for listening. Love this job. Couldn't do it without you. Tonight, do it. You hear me every day ask you. You haven't done it yet. Why not? It's not my request. It's God's request. Forgive as you want to be forgiven by Him. Tonight, forgive someone and reach out to them and tell them of the everlasting love of Jesus Christ. See you tomorrow.